If you haven't already found the amazing library full of resources in ActivInspire, we're going to go there now and take a look where you can find it. In particular today we're going to look at these storytelling resources because they're so useful and lots of fun for students and teachers alike. So I'm going to hover over the browser that lives on the side of my page. If you don't have the browser there, you can go to View, come down to Browsers. You can see there's a keyboard shortcut, Control-B on Windows and Command-B on a Mac. Click on that and your browser's here. Now the browser automatically rolls in and out like this, which can be a little bit annoying. So there is a drawing pin icon up here, Pin Toolbox, and I click that. It then shrinks my page a little so that I can still see everything on there. Now it should have automatically opened on your page browser, which is this icon here. If you come one icon to the right, that is your resource browser. If you click on that, just make sure you've also clicked on the shared icon here, and you should see most of what I've got here. I've got a few extras in there. You should have a subjects folder at the bottom of this word stem here. If you don't have that, that is available for download from our support site. I've made a video on how to do that, so watch that little video and it will tell you how to do it, because you'll then have all of these other awesome resources. And I'm going to scroll down and come to the Language Arts and Literacy folder. I'm going to click on the little plus to unroll that. I'm going to scroll down a little bit more and you can see I have a large folder of storytelling resources. Now in here they've got nursery rhymes and traditional tales, and in there will be backgrounds or images that you might need, or the kids might need, to retell stories. So I'm going to come down to Jack and the Beanstalk because it's one of my favourite stories. And you can see here I've got a load of backgrounds. Let me just turn the page here so I get a blank page. And I can pull on any background that I might need. I just drag it on like so. Okay. I think I'll have that one actually. And I'm going to pull on some characters. So let me pull on a giant. Now the giant's not very giant, so I'm going to stretch him. If I was on a touch screen at the moment, I could pinch and zoom him by just pinching and pushing out with my fingers in his tummy, but I'm currently just using a mouse. So I'm going to use the bubble with the diagonal line in the corner, which keeps him in proportion, because if I used any of these ones, they would distort him. Maybe I do want him skinnier or fatter, but I'm just going to leave him like that. I'm going to pull on a Jack who's running for his life. And I'm also going to pull on a golden goose, just for argument's sake. Now, the items have come on in the order that I pulled them onto the page. So they've layered themselves up, one on top of the other, depending on how I pulled them onto the page. Now, there are a number of ways that I can change the layers. I could right-click on the item, and I could reorder and fiddle around with bringing to the front, sending to back, swapping them into different layers like so. If right-clicking is a bit tricky for you to do at the panel, what you can do is use Cheats right-hand click. So you can click on an item once, and here's your Cheats right-hand click object edit menu, and then you've got the same options there of reordering. But my preference is actually to come into my browser, and the third icon along at the top here shows me everything that I've dragged onto the page. I find this a little bit easier if there's not too many items on the page, like here. If I click on an item here, it should highlight on the list here, just in case there are many golden geese on the page. Or if I click on an item here, it should highlight on the page, like so. Now, I would actually like Jack to be on top of the golden goose, so I'm going to drag him up the stack. Oop, there we go. Except I didn't, I dragged him down. Let me undo that and try again. I might try dragging the golden goose down instead. There we go. Okay, and now if I just move Jack over a little bit, it appears that he is carrying that golden goose. Now if Jack's going to be running along the screen, I might want to actually move him, or the students might want to actually move him, and I want him to move with the goose. So I'm going to select both of them, and I'm going to use this icon here, which is my grouped. Turns yellow when they're grouped, and now Jack and the goose will move together. So not only do I have a bank of resources here that I can pull on and use to retell a story, but I've got some other tools that I can also use to really make this more about my world. And I'm saying my world when really I'm talking about the students' world. So if the students are working together to retell a story, it could be they're modernising a story, they might need additional images. So I'm going to pop out with my desktop tools here, and I get a little round toolbar that will land always in the middle of my screen. I'm just going to push that off to one side, and you can see that I have a camera tool here. Now what I'm going to do, one way of making the story really about the students is to add their own faces in. So when I was teaching, I had a folder of images. The kids took photos of each other, and we had a folder of them sitting on my desktop, or the desktop of the computer attached to our board, or in these days it would be a panel. And the students could come out with desktop tools the way we've just done, bring up a photo of themselves or their classmates, and here's our desktop tools just sitting over top of that. And we've got a number of cameras we can make use of. Freehand or point to point are probably the ones we would most like to use. I'm going to use point to point to cut out this. I'll just move that over there. Very lovely face here. There we go. I'll even take her ears. Everywhere I'm dotting, it's anchoring a point, and I've got to get back to my point of origin, which if I stretch that out I can see is about there. Now it's trimmed around, it's a cropping tool, and I'm going to plonk that onto my current page. There we go. To go back into my flip chart, I use the Return to Flip Charts icon on that toolbar, and there we go. So I'm going to put this as the giant's face, because this is the giant in my household, the giant terror at least, and I'm just going to stretch that a little bit to try and make that fit a little bit better. There we go. And now we have a giant who is a member of our class or household, as the case may be, and I've just grouped those together again so that now when the giant moves, the whole of the giant moves. And of course, if we wanted to, we could add our own hair or whatever on top. Apologies, it's with a mouse. And of course, we can group those and they will all move together. Now, another tool that we can use to bring the children into the story is a sound recorder, so we can get their own voices onto the screen. I'm going to click on my toolbox or my tools icon here. Under more tools, I have a sound recorder. You can see there's a keyboard shortcut for it there. For Mac it's Command Shift R, and it's a nice simple one to use. The red button is going to start and the square black button is going to stop the recording. So I'll push go. Crikey, I'd better run fast. Push stop, and here is the sound bite on the page. Let's listen to that. Crikey, I'd better run fast. There we go. Now, if I want to, I can just leave the icon there on the page so that the students can see it and know there is a sound bite to listen to. I could attach that to Jack by grouping it so that if he's moving, it would move with him. But I want to show you one slightly more advanced step. I'm going to take the soundbite and add it over top of Jack. So what I'm going to do first is at the top of my screen you can see I've got a blue cog. Normally 99% of the time I want that to be blue. If I click on it I go into design mode and you can see my icon is red now, red for danger. Danger because it disables things and stops them working, and as you can see my soundbite's now got this red box over it, and every time I click on it the sound does not play. So design mode disables any actions I may have set, and it also allows me to unlock things I might have locked down on my screen. So I'm going to go into design mode purely because sometimes it's very easy to accidentally set the sound off when you think you're clicking on the bubbles and you get the sound playing 29 million times. It can be a bit annoying. So what I've done is I've stretched the soundbite as large as the character, and the reason I've done that is so that the students will have success finding that soundbite. Imagine if it was a tiny little soundbite that I then make invisible, which is what I'm about to do now with this button here, because obviously I don't want to see that big ugly soundbite. I'm going to use the slider, it's a transparency slider, all the way to 0. Here we go. And of course I want to be able to move Jack around the screen, and in order to do that without losing my soundbite, I'm going to select a bit of the soundbite and a bit of Jack and group it. So now it's going to move with Jack. The final thing to remember to do is to turn on your blue presentation mode again, and you'll see now when I hover near Jack or on top of Jack it has that play button. I can still grab Jack and move him around, but if I were to click on him or tap on him,
crikey, I'd better run fast.
It's a bit of an Australian accent going on there. The sound will play. So hopefully that gives you a few little tips on how you can take some of the resources in your resource library, like the storytelling ones, and maybe take them to a slightly deeper level using a couple of the other tools there.